Well, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris, and joining me tonight for our reunion and continuation where
reunited and it feels so good.
Joshua Ling, of course, my co-host for tonight for our review of Toy Story. Hey, Joshua, how's it going?
What's up, dude? How's it been?
Crazy. And you know what I'm talking about, Joshua, so just hang on there for a minute. I just want to say, audiences, I just want to say how sorry I am to all of you, our listeners, our supporters, all those for all the years that you've been listening to us for this long delay. I mean, let me look at real quickly. Yeah, the last episode was released on July 17th. So there's been a good delay between that episode and now. So
just a little over a month, no big deal.
I think we've had longer delays than that, actually. I think that was longer.
Yeah, I think we have.
Yeah. But no, audiences, I know at the end of our Beauty and the Beast episode, we promised to do Star Trek Beyond. We tried very, very, very hard. We tried so hard, but the problem was that Friday, Joshua and I were going to try to do it together. I think we were going to try, all of us were going to try, but, Joshua, I think you had a scheduling conflict. Like, you had some things you had going on. Like, for those who don't know, Joshua was also in the middle of a move himself. He was moving away from Alpharetta. He was going up to Augusta. I was leaving Cumming and moving up to Alabama. So, yeah, so that was
just Alabama in general. Just,
Fair Hope.
Nowhere specific.
Yeah, Fair Hope, Alabama. So let me be more specific. So, we tried. We were going to try to do it together, and we were going to try to record at the warehouse. But
the warehouse, for those of you who don't know, is a very wonderful coffee establishment in Cumming.
Yes,
so, yeah,
really great place. Yeah, just crazy things right there. Just did not work out. Ben and Ian also had vacations that they were going. I think Ben, the following day, or that following Saturday, was going to be on a vacation with his wife. And, which, by the way, congratulations to Benjamin, Curly, and Holly. They're having a baby. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet, but, yes.
I don't think they know either.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
I don't know. There are some technologies I can tell you pretty early in advance. But anyway, congratulations. We're having, Story to Screen is having its first little baby.
Yes, Story to Screen is birthing a human child. The first podcast to ever birth a human child.
Yes. So, but it won't be taking care of the baby insurance or medical bills or anything like that. So we're not reliable on that end.
Oh, no, it's a podcast. Podcasts are for free. You think they make money?
No. We don't make money off of this show. So anybody wants to sue us, sorry.
This podcast is going to be the deadest beat of dads.
Yes. Well, one dad. The rest of us.
The podcast, like I said.
Well, I mean, we've yet to be dads. Yet. So,
no, the podcast is a dad, and it's a deadbeat.
Yeah, it's a deadbeat dad, and so it's not reliable for any lawsuit. So you can't sue.
It can't even put out an episode every week.
Yeah, no.
Just like
between July and. But anyway, yeah. So we wanted to do Star Trek, Jason Bourne, and Suicide Squad. Just everything just did not work out. So that kind of leads into this conversation. Joshua, did you by any chance get a chance to see any of those three films that I just named?
I haven't seen a movie since Finding Dory.
Oh, wow. So, see, people, that's how crazy our schedules have been. Like, I have not been able to go to the movies either. At all. So, everyone...
And when I say that I don't just mean going to the movies, I literally mean that I have not seen a movie at all since Finding Dory.
Yeah.
So...
Yep. I mean, I've seen a couple of things, but like on home videos or DVDs. But I just going out to see stuff that has been hard enough as it is. Also, we got to talk about a little bit of some things here. This past summer, dude, has not been good.
I haven't seen a lot of good feedback.
No, the only good movie, the good ones, I think that have gotten like a really solid, like positive responses have been Finding Dory.
Right, Finding Dory was excellent.
And Star Trek Beyond. That's been it. Well, and then Captain America 3, but I mean, that kind of launched us off into the...
Yeah.
But that's been kind of... Star Trek 3, which has gotten excellent reviews, surprisingly, though, has not been doing very well at the box office. Have you heard about
Interesting.
This? Have you heard about this?
No. Like, explain more detail. What's the story going on?
Okay, so here's the problem. Star Trek Beyond, which was released at the end of July. I'm taking a look right here. Okay, it was released on July 22nd. It has been how long has that technically been? Well, that has been over 30 days as we speak. So that's technically 4 or 5 weeks, I would say. 4 or 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, about 4 weeks, yeah.
Okay. As of right now, it has made, on a budget of $185 million, it has only made $231 million.
Huh.
That's okay, but that's like $40 million extra. You know how like in the system, you know how it works? They have to break even, so it has to make twice that amount. So it has to make like roughly 100 what is it again? Like 185 times 2 would be 10. Like basic almost like over $300 million. And
right, yeah.
And I think it's like 34 million, I think that's what it is, or 32, something like that. And it hasn't broken even yet. And what's another thing too? Oh, the competition hasn't been really that bad the past couple of weeks. I mean, with the exception of Suicide Squad, but we'll talk about that a little later. The studio wanted this to make $1 billion. Like, that's what they wanted. I don't know if Star Trek has that kind of legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it ever has.
Well, that's the problem. Well, they brought in that guy, the Fast and Furious director, to do it, and which those movies have made, $900 to over $1 billion. The recent Fast and Furious movies, and yeah, they have. This one is kind of struggling, and now the future of the franchise is kind of up in the air, unfortunately. And the previous ones, let me make this clear, the previous ones have made $300 to $400 million, like the past two ones, Star Trek from 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness, made somewhere to $300 to $400 million each. So, that's good, but what's your take on this? I mean, do you think the franchise is dead? I mean, I know it's been 30 days, but it hasn't really gotten off to a solid start. I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, the franchise, as in all Star Trek properties, is not dead, but films for at least a little while could be. I don't know. I think it's too late to count them out. I think some people, wait for the reviews, and I don't know, Trekkies seem to like strike me as people who wait for the reviews. I don't know. But I suppose time will tell.
Okay. So that's one thing. That was just something that was interesting to bring up. Okay. And then so you had that, and then the last two films that came out that were high profiles were Jason Bourne and Suicide Squad. Dude, I have not seen Jason Bourne yet, and the critics were bashing that movie big time, which was really heart crushing for me because I really like the Bourne franchise, and you had Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass, the original creators, back, and I've heard that like it is an insult to the previous movies. I don't think I don't think you're a big Bourne fan. Am I right in that? Like you haven't seen all of them?
Yeah, I used to be. I have seen I don't know how many there are now, but I saw 3 of them. And they wore on me after a while, and then I looked back on them and went, did I really like that, or did I just watch it and said I enjoyed it? Okay. And I kind of go with the latter. I don't think that they're a bad story or anything. It's just not my cup of tea.
Okay. But yeah, so the Jason Bourne got crushed. So, and then the following week, you had Suicide Squad. And boy, was I shocked, or was I in for a shock that Thursday, the night before it came out. You were aware of the negative reviews that it received, right, Joshua?
I was, yes. A lot of people said it's garbage.
Are you shocked? I was shocked. I was so shocked by that.
I was not. I was not, because ever since I first saw the trailers, I was one of the people who said, ah. And the only thing that like barely made me interested was Harley Quinn having her first major live action portrayal on screen. And even then, I'm like, but it's not a Joker Harley Quinn movie. This isn't the whatever they call that, Strange Love or whatever
Mad
it's called,
Love.
the story with Joker and Harley. But like, it's just this kind of weird, I don't really care about these villains sort of thing. And they tried to make it super dark, and then they tried to make it Guardians of the Galaxy. And I kept hearing that they made a bunch of new edits and things. And anytime that happens, like right before, I can't think of one movie off the top of my head that has done well when that many changes were done and when there were so many cooks in the kitchen. And DC is just so scrambling, all hands on deck, that they're like, shake it up harder, shake it. And they're just shaking it to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was going to be a bomb from the beginning. Apparently it has kind of a cult following now, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, of the 3 movies that we just talked about, it's the highest grossing film. At a budget of $175 million, it has made almost $600 million worldwide.
Yeah. That sounds about right. People want to see Harley Quinn, and people who don't even know who Harley Quinn is want to see that actress because she's good looking, and they, objectify her. So,
I was shocked at the negative reception. I mean, I've yet to see the film and to judge it on my own terms, but there are a lot of people that I trust who have seen the film, who are professional critics, that I completely trust when they talk about movies, and they have just told me it is the pits. Like, I mean, look, when you go into a movie, you don't think of the flaws, you don't think of that. You're absolutely, you think of what you've seen and what's been promoted for you. And the thing was that this movie failed to deliver as an intelligent, sophisticated superhero film. And I think that's what people really wanted to see. But then then the DC fanboys, oh my gosh, they're getting more and more ridiculous. Like, did you hear that they threatened film critics who were just sharing an opinion on Rotten Tomatoes, and they wanted to shut down Rotten Tomatoes, and they believe it's a conspiracy against DC Entertainment? just some bogus nonsense. Did you hear about that?
I didn't, but not surprised in the least. Calm down, people. Calm down. Just opinions. They can't hurt you.
Like, what? Where does this derive from? Where does it...
I can tell you.
What is it?
Puberty.
But the thing that just, like, look, is it that you know that this is not good, but you know this is all you're gonna get, and you have to defend it to the very to the very end, and just say like, okay, this is all we're gonna get, and we have to defend it. I'm kind of wondering if that's the mentality more so.
It's possible. The whole being defensive about everything is a problem, but I mean they're entitled to their opinion. They're allowed to like what they like. You know, I'm not gonna
Sure.
bash them for that. I'm just gonna bash them for their behavior and being completely infantile.
Yeah, I mean, if someone doesn't like it, then fine. I mean,
And let's be honest, there are people who do the exact same thing with Marvel and say they can do no wrong. I've been accused of that before, though I don't think it's the case. There are certain films and moments and things that I don't like in the Marvel universe, but you know, it's just, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if people can be weird and crazy, and just about anything can trigger them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of what's been going on in the... Oh, here's another one I want to bring up. Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
I had such high hopes for that movie, and it just... Ugh. The moment I saw the trailer and just the actors that they've got, I just knew right there and then, like, okay, this movie is just not going to work out. Because... And Morgan Freeman as Sheik, you know, the Sheik Ilderim, the man who trains Ben-Hur in the chariot race. That doesn't work. I'm sorry. That does not work at all. I'm sorry. Oh, man. I'm just... Again, this summer has just not been very good at all. I mean...
Yeah.
Just disappointments here left and right, and just nothing works, or at least nothing that just seemed to please the or moviegoers or critics, with the exception of some, you know. But I don't know. I would like to talk to Alicia about this. You know, just talking to her about the different films and all that stuff, and maybe we'll talk about that when we get to our best of the year. If we ever get to a best of the year list.
Right? At the rate we feel like we're going. I mean, it hasn't been the worst break, but still, come on now.
Okay. Well, and that brings us to another thing I wanted to bring up. You know, I know everyone really is excited for the 100th episode. Look, we tried very hard to cram in everything we could before I left, but, you know, that was just insane. Another thing, too, is that everyone's schedule is just kind of crazy right now. Ben is kind of up in the air. You know, I mean, we all still want to contribute to the show, but the problem is that just scheduling, and if everyone's availability, and you know, we don't know when we'll reach 100. We really want to try to get in as much as possible. I mean, we're trying to plan another episode for this week, for Friday, which I will not say what it is, but you know, again, it's all about availability and scheduling and all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, we are trying our best. I will try very, very hard, and two, I'm also in the situation where I'm about to get a job. So, you know, the scheduling could affect that as well. So people, I mean, it's just a matter of how things work out on our ends, but we're definitely going to do our best to get to the 100th episode as soon as possible. Not try to get to it like quickly or rush it, because we do want to make that event special for all of us, but we don't want to rush it in a bad way. So we do want to take our time with the 100th episode. But But yeah, so we're gonna do our best. And we'll keep things up, and we'll try to keep you updated on some stuff. And honestly, this episode right here, it's honestly much more of a miracle that this is happening right now, to be very honest.
No kidding, guys. I'm in a mall parking lot right now. If you can't tell, I am completely mobile here, and I'm going to have to periodically turn on my car just to keep my internet going. So, I'm doing this for you.
Yes. He's doing it all for me. If I could hug you, I would. But you can't.
It's okay. I feel your hugs through the wires.
Yes. I'll seep it through the wiring and all that stuff. But anyway.
Oh.
But anyway, folks, yeah, so we'll keep you updated with future episodes. And as we speak, this is our 93rd episode. 93rd episode. And so we are 7 episodes away from 100. So we're almost there. Anyway, folks, so let's jump into our review for Toy Story.
Sergeant?
Yes, sir.
Establish your recon post downstairs.
Code Red, repeat. We are at Code Red. Recon Plan Charlie, execute. Move, 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 move! It's a big one.
Walt Disney Pictures presents a totally new animated motion picture event.
Star Command, come in. Do you read me?
The story of 2 toys.
There seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Hello?
Headed for a showdown.
My name is Woody. This is my spot.
I am Buzz Lightyear. I come in peace.
You are a child's plaything!
You are a sad, strange little man.
And playing by their own rules.
Draw!
Got me again.
I don't like confrontations!
Buzz, look, an alien!
Where?
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Oh, impressive wingspan. Very good.
Oh, what? You can't fly.
Yes, I can.
Can't.
Can.
Can't.
This holiday season, the adventure takes off when toys come to life.
To infinity and beyond.
Toy Story.
Look out!
Can.
What you just heard was the original trailer for Toy Story, the first Pixar animated movie from 1995. It stars Tom Hanks and Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear and Woody. Gosh, well, let me think. Back in 2015 was the 20th anniversary for this movie. And actually this year will mark the 22nd anniversary for it as well. But, Joshua, so what has been your relationship with Toy Story, this particular piece, the first Pixar animated movie?
Yep. Well, I saw it in theaters in 1995, like a lot of people. I think my parents were wanting to not see it at first because of their initial reactions to some of the trailers, but then they heard from some people that it was really good. And Jonathan and I were very surprised at the time that they wanted to take us. Christopher was just a baby at the time. He's my second brother. And he, I think, got babysat for that night. We could go out as a family and watch the movie. I remember seeing it in the Mansell Road AMC theater in Alpharetta area near the North Point Mall. And afterward, going to Burger King. I did that for both Toy Story and Space Jam, and I have fond memories of both those movies as a result. Obviously, one of those stands up more than the other. One of them's more a guilty pleasure than the other. But both of them have forever been tied in my memory because of similar times. However, you grow up with Toy Story. You saw Toy Story 2 and then Toy Story 3. It's a wonderful trilogy. And I mean, the foundation with the first one is spectacular. It's just a great movie. It's witty. It's funny. There are jokes for the adults. There are jokes for the kids. Nothing's too crude. Nothing's too over the top. And at the heart of it, you really have a great philosophical story about, a boy and his toy.
You know what? Same here. I recall my family taking me to go see it, when it first came out. So yeah, I have that, I think of all the movies the first movies that I saw in the theater, like this was possibly one of the first ones. I think I saw Jurassic Park in theaters. I can't 100% remember, but I do. This was like the first movie that I vividly recall seeing in the movie theaters, and this is the movie that really, honestly, like captured my imagination. In terms of like filmmaking, but also in terms of the dangers of merchandising as well. Because I remember like wanting to own almost every single Toy Story toy that would come out. You thought the Star Wars toys were, you remember you thought the Star Wars toys were more addictive. This was the Toy Story toys were more addictive to me than anything else. Like the Buzz Lightyear figures, the Woody figures, the 12-inch Woody figures, the 12-inch Buzz Lightyear figures, which I think were flawed. I don't have to get into details on that because of the wings, but anyway. If you remember the wings stuff, then good on you. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about, people. But yeah, I just remember watching this movie. I mean, like, I was a kid. I was like 5-6 years old. And what was my closest relationship, earthly relationship? Toys. I mean, I loved toys. I mean, who doesn't love toys as a kid? I mean, unless you're poverty stricken, then yeah, I'm sorry. But I recall just hours and hours, playing with toys, and to kind of go see a movie about this, about the relationship between, a boy and his toys, but more so the relationship between toys and their society and the bigger scope of what the world, of what lies beyond, the safety of one's own bedroom, was fascinating. And I remember I just remember, even after the subsequent viewings that I watched this movie constantly. That and the sequels, but, the sequel as well. But I mean, this one specifically, I've probably seen this movie like 400 times.
Yeah, something like that.
For you too? Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. One other anecdote that came to mind when you were talking is, I mean, there are very few movies that are as popular in the Ling quotable vocabulary. I think Princess Bride is up there, and a couple others, but I think the number one possibly is Toy Story. We quote, "Go back to your lives, citizens, show's over," fairly often. And I was thinking also of my cousins, have started a tradition way back when the Toy Story came out, where they would put army men in their Christmas tree and hide them up in the branches and stuff like that as a result.
I did that too. I did that a lot. I remember doing that as a kid. I think I had more fun with playing with my little army men with my dad. Actually, that's a memory I have. But no, I remember like, this is one of those movies that I remember. Like, I memorized like the whole script. Like, I know like the whole movie, like the lines and all that stuff. And I remember like at one time in the shower just reciting the dialogue in my mind.
Yeah, we pretty much have that memorized by now, right?
I think so. Yeah. I have more important things on my mind right now, so I can't really quote it right now. But
besides, that would be a really long podcast.
Yeah, that would be very, very long. Might as well do a dramatization, I guess. So you play. I'll play Woody. You play Buzz.
Your helmet does that whoosh thing. Yeah, which, by the way, that particular thing was the problem that I had with the Buzz Lightyear dolls, is that they're action figures, is that they couldn't do the whoosh thing.
You could take the helmet off, actually.
You could take it halfway off, but you couldn't just press the button and it just go,
yeah,
or close, whatever, because people didn't want it like spring loaded and crunching on kids' fingers, I guess. I don't know. And then the wingspan, that was terrible. It was like half the proportion. Oh, impressive wingspan. Very good.
But no, I mean, like, I guess we'll go ahead and just talk a little bit more about the story. But what are some of the things that about the story that have impressed you throughout the years, and why it's so enduring, why it's endured in your heart, and as well as other people as well, but more primarily you.
I think the biggest thing that big picture has really stuck with me, particularly from the first Toy Story, but also from all the Toy Stories, is the idea of you were created to do something, and if you're not doing that, you're essentially worthless. And that is a very strong and mature position that I think a lot of people don't want to take in. Some people think it's damaging. I think a lot of psychologists would think that idea is damaging. You are what you are, and that has worth in and of itself, is what they say. But, you know, when you're created to do something like you and I believe we are, that's kind of a big deal. Obviously, it's not a perfect allegory, and he's not God. This is not, you know, some kind of, you know, perfect metaphor or anything like that. But I do think that the idea of Woody and Buzz being, more so Woody in the first one, but Buzz later on realizing, hey, I have a purpose, and Buzz realizing that his purpose wasn't what he thought it was. You know, and coming to grips with that, that's some really, really heavy stuff for a kid's movie, honestly, is the idea of identity, being what you do or who you are or all that kind of stuff. That's really the core for Toy Story for me.
Yeah. But I think you were mentioning, you know, the message of this movie is purpose, you know, what is your purpose in this world or in this life? And in this, you know, we're talking about material things that come to life, you know?
Yeah.
It's that classic Disney spin on things where, you know, objects that have no heart and soul come to life. You know, it's that familiar.
Well, right.
But, but the thing that I feel like this movie, you were talking about the purpose and what were you created to do? I feel like that idea is very much existentialism in my point of view, because you look at, well, I want to say this because the filmmakers who are not Christians, you know, they are approaching it from a very secularist perspective.
One or two of them are, but yeah, go ahead.
But I want to say that I think they're kind of questioning. They're obviously doing it from the perspective of toys, but I think the message is, you know, what is our purpose in the bigger scope of things, you know? And that's very hard a question for somebody who has an opposite viewpoint of what we believe in. You know, you and I, Joshua, believe in. But I think what the film handles well is not necessarily saying we don't, you know, not necessarily, it doesn't say you don't have a purpose, you know, you don't have any. It's doing it from the perspective of these toys. What do toys, you know, I think for the most part, it's approaching it from the aspect of how would toys feel about this? If they were alive, you know, hypothetically, if they were alive, how would toys feel in these circumstances or in these situations? What is the purpose of a toy? And the purpose of a toy is to make a child happy, which is that's the main theme throughout this whole trilogy is, you know, what are toys supposed to do? Make a child happy. They are supposed to be played with. That purpose, that is the purpose of it. And if you develop if a human being develops a stronger bond with what he has been raised with, this toy, then yeah, I think that's going to make it more impactful, in my point of view.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I'd call it existentialism, though. It's almost like an alternate to existentialism in that existentialism essentially states that we create our own meaning and our own purpose, and the toys are definitely not doing that. They were created with a purpose.
Yeah. I mean, from their company that manufactured them.
Right, yeah.
But that's what I was saying. That's what I was kind of, you know, reiterating or kind of tied into the purpose. You know, they may have approached it as an existentialism aspect, but then they kind of said, okay, well, wait a minute, we're approaching this with from the perspective of toys. What is the purpose of a toy? You know, how would toys react to this situation? You know, and I think this movie does it pretty well in my book. It doesn't, it's not shoving it down your throat to where it's like, we don't have a purpose. I mean, there's some casualties. You do see toys get hurt and all that stuff, and you kind of wonder, well, that was a shame. Why did that happen to that toy? But, you know, what I like about this movie is that it presents the toys in a very human. There's a very human element to them that's very relatable. And yeah, and you know, you see like for example, like with Woody and his relationship with Andy, and the fact that Buzz Lightyear, who is indirectly kind of stealing the spotlight from him, you know, you're like it's like the popular kid in high school. I mean, you know, he's the big wig, and he has all the attention, and then all of a sudden the new guy comes in, and then he takes the spotlight from that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it also, you know, if you wanted to take it one step up, it's almost like social classes and class warfare to a certain extent. Woody's at the top, and then someone else is at the top, and he gets jealous about it, you know?
Do you mentioned social class. Do you view the toys in Andy's room as kind of like a social class in some way?
Well, I mean, they're having a meeting at basically
Yeah.
a town hall meeting, and every town has a general social structure. Woody's essentially the elected representative, but he's elected by Andy and not the other toys necessarily. I mean, we actually look at all this kind of stuff, and honestly, yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. It's more of a social class structure, which is still a school. You can say the same thing in a school or high school or whatever. I mean, everyone has that. There's always a social pecking order, but you can essentially apply that allegorically to just about any kind of structure, whether it be school, whether it be world nations. It doesn't really matter, you know.
It's funny you mentioned that world nation. So this is like the world nation of toys when Woody's up there. The one thing about that meeting that gets to my mind is when Slinky says, hey, come on, Potato Head. And then Mr. Potato Head does that thing with the mouth, which I'm not going to say what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, kissing his rear.
Classic.
That is great.
Oh, boy.
That's a little bit over the head. But
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, now, one thing that I love about, this was John Lasseter. I think this was John Lasseter's film debut as a director. He had done some other stuff at this point in time, but.
And he had worked as a director before, but
Short films.
I think he was kicked off some of the projects that he was initially directing. I know he had a very heavy directorial hand in The Brave Little Toaster, but I'm not sure if he ended up being credited as the director or not.
No, he didn't. I'm aware of that. I think he had a role to play in that in terms of a director, but then he never got credit. So there's some really weird complications. I don't know if it was the percentage that he contributed or something else. But anyway, what I love about, or one of the things I love about the two characters, Woody and Buzz, is that they represent the past and the future. You know.
Yeah.
I love. That's the one thing that I kind of that I discovered later on. You know, when I began to kind of develop that analytical mindset, and I love how, you know, here you have this sheriff, you know, Woody doll, and he's the West, you know, he's the cowboy, you know, he's the representation of where we came from, you know, how, the past, what is the thing that we think of the past, you know, maybe in American history, the cowboys, that is our past. And then what is the future? Well, technology, science fiction, you know, the spaceman, you know, Sputnik or all that other stuff, you know, Buzz, you know, the famous, you know, Armstrong, you know, the astronauts in space and all that stuff, the space race, you know, during the 60s and the 50s and 60s, you know, with Russia and America. I love that symbolism with those characters, and they're both colliding with each other.
Yep, and it's authentic symbolism too. That's one of the things I like about it, is it's very authentic, because most of the people who worked on the story actually grew up in that period where all of a sudden the Westerns were being phased out by science fiction.
Yeah. I mean, what are some things, let's start, because I think this is like the richest part, but the relationship between the two of these guys and what they represent technically. Well, here's something else too. What I like about Buzz, or the mentality of Woody is that he is grounded in reality. He knows who he is. He knows what his purpose is, and he's not crazy. Unlike Buzz, where that's the question about Buzz. Like, do you think he knows that he's a toy and he's trying to play it up that he is the real Buzz Lightyear, or that he truly believes that he's the real Buzz Lightyear, and he's, and that kind of comes across as he's delusioned by that idea?
I believe number two. I think that had he not been number two, that he would not have had quite a psychotic breakdown later on in the movie.
Okay.
And he probably wouldn't have jumped off that banister.
Yeah, that's true.
In the movie. I think that, as far as, Woody, goes in this situation, you could even say that Buzz would be considered like a dreamer type, and Woody would be considered a practical. What's the term? Pragmatist. And you're also, in an allegorical sense, dealing with someone who wants to be something more, wants to be something big, wants to be the rock star, whatever, the big actor, the big, whatever. He's going out for something huge, and and I think it's a great metaphor because it's artistic too. It's not just like a good metaphor, like it connects. He's got his head in the clouds, in space. He's way up there in the atmosphere, like a spaceman. Like, it really works out that way. And I thought I'd point that out too.
Yeah. But I wanted to say, like, about the delusion, the mentality of these characters, like, again, Woody's kind of more grounded, and he knows what his purpose is. But I'm kind of wondering, you have this spaceman, and he's delusion of who he is or who he wants to be. I'm trying to think if that was, if the future, if that's supposed to be a metaphor for the delusionment of what we can expect in the future mentality. Do you know what I mean by that?
I think that it's more ambiguous. I don't think they're trying to say that the future is not gonna be bright or anything like that. I don't think that they're trying to say that at all, but I think that they're trying to present both points of view and show how they're both flawed. Show how, you can actually look at this and see it in John Lasseter's life actually too, because, and Don Bluth, who was a good partner of his, he didn't work on Toy Story, but he was, during that same period where a lot of the 9 old men in Disney and a lot of the other animators and things that were the big time, during the 50s, 60s, and even before that, they were all getting a lot older and slowly passing things on, but wanting to keep hold of everything and not give the reins over. And so but at the same time, some of the animators, not all of them, were not up to snuff. And it's just, it's always an interesting dynamic when one generation is handing over the reins to another. Haha, reins. Mm-hmm. There's another good artistic metaphor connection with Woody, horses, all that.
Mm-hmm. I want to, I guess we'll get into some technical aspect with this movie right now, because a lot of people say that the movie doesn't hold up. I mean, look, this was Pixar's early days, and you look at what Pixar has done since then, they've drastically improved in the past 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Especially when looking at the first 3 films, well, the trilogy, the Toy Story trilogy. I still think the Toy Story characters look great in this film. I don't think there's any. They're
very expressive. I think the expressions are great. Obviously the textures aren't going to be as, impressive and stuff like that. I mean, they literally had to render these things for days on days because they didn't have, this is 1995. Think of the computer you had in 1995. Okay. Or really technically like 1994, because this movie was rendering during that period. It's just
I think it's 93 actually, because it takes.
Yeah, maybe.
93, maybe even 92. Doing these type of films take.
I mean, yeah.
No,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, did you hear about the story that John Lasseter or one of the producers or something like that were overseeing the film, and the film, it was like in its final stages. It had been completed, but then something happened in some sort of machine, and it was lost. Like the whole film was completely gone. The finished product, 4 years of work, was gone.
I remember something about that, but I don't remember exactly what happened.
Yeah,
yeah.
But thankfully, someone had saved it on some back files, and they were able to save the film. But for some reason, the film was almost gone completely. So this almost didn't happen at first. Yeah, there was a lot of things, but I think when I look at this film, oddly enough, the film actually feels the most realistic. Actually, it feels the most believable. Like, there's some images, where I'm like, did they shoot that in a reel? Did they shoot that on an actual, like, location or something like that? Because there's a real, practicality to it that feels real. It feels genuine.
There's a lot of good weight dynamics to the animation. You can tell when, like, you can feel in your imagination when something has like weight or force behind it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm like
does that?
Yeah. Like when I look at the texture of like the trucks and the cars, and even more so the houses. Like the houses feel believable to me.
Well, yeah, we had 3-dimensional CAD programs for a long time before Toy Story came out. I was just going to say, I was trying to think back to what computer we had back in 94, and I remember we had a 66 megahertz processor PC. 66 megahertz!
Thank you for remembering this stuff, because I wasn't raised on computers when I was a little kid, so we didn't have a computer.
Oh my goodness, 66, we're on like, my phone is like almost 2 gigahertz. It's just like, whoa!
Well, just
I think we had a hard drive that was like, it might have been like 16 gigabytes.
Yeah,
which is, like most smartphones have more than 16 gigabytes now.
Imagine with that kind of computer, how much storage or how much footage.
Oh my gosh! Plus, we didn't have the ability. Here's the thing, too. A lot of people go, "Oh yeah, an MP4 takes up a lot of space on my computer when I download it." They didn't have MP4 back then. These things were compressed, not even at all. These things were in AVI files. For those of you who know video stuff, that means a completely uncompressed video file, almost like Chris would understand this, like a WAV file. You know how huge WAV files are compared to MP3s.
Yeah.
Basically, this was like the WAV file of because there was no other way to save something digitally as far as video goes. So I mean, they had to render out to AVI and then transfer it to film.
Yeah.
Oh,
the process must have been strenuous. No wonder why.
Serious.
4 or 5. I mean, right. That's why it took like 2, 3, 4 years. Who knows? But anyway, the animation. Now, the human. Do you feel like the human beings? I think the human beings are fine. I mean, it's definitely less. It's definitely less cartoonish than what we got in the subsequent films, including those outside of Pixar, mind you. I think in the subsequent films,
humans have. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
The humans have. Yeah, the humans have an uncanny valley kind of look to them a little bit, but they work. I mean, they're expressive enough to tell the story, and they're not in it the whole time. So
no.
So yeah.
I mean, I think I look at like Andy, and maybe even I think Sid. I think is probably in terms of the human beings. I think Sid is the best looking one, actually, because I feel I feel like he's a lot more expressive. He's the one that has to. More so than Andy, I feel like has to give more of a performance that's let loose, somewhat.
Well, also, Sid is meant to look creepy, so it works better.
Yes, that's true. Andy, but I have a question about this concerning Andy and Sid. Do you think Andy and Sid, I always kind of wondered if they knew each other, actually. Since they were next door neighbors, if they knew each other. But 2, Oh, where was I going with Sid and Andy? Which of these two characters do you identify with the most, Sid or Andy? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit of both when it came to my toys.
I was definitely more Andy. I was the kid who, when I played with Legos, I would get mad at people for knocking them over and stuff like that. I was always building and creating stories and things more so than being like, destruction. That really wasn't my thing as a young kid. I don't know why. I wasn't very, I shouldn't say that. I was aggressive, but I was taught that if something has value to it, you don't break it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, and I will say that I said I was a little bit of both. I mean, I was not as aggressive, but, toys did break. I will say that. And
yeah.
Unintentionally, I mean, I think I did throw my toys around a couple times when I was angry or something like that, so I did.
You monster.
Yes, I am a monster. I do recall putting a video camera one time in my room just to see. This is how stupid I was back then. I put a camera in my room just to see if the toys would come alive while I'm out of the room. It's like, wait a minute.
That sounds about accurate. I think a lot of us, more of us than would like to admit it, did something similar to that. So
I know. See, that's how powerful this film. You talk about The Exorcist having so much power on people. This movie had a lot of power on little kids and their mindsets.
Honestly, you know how the whole man-child thing, but also woman-child thing has become a major thing in pop culture, and people are, we've had all these film reboots and franchises and all this other kind of stuff. I particularly blame Toy Story for this. Not 100%, but I seriously blame Toy Story for a good chunk of it. People actually valuing their childhood now instead of just blundering on into adulthood with no foundation. I definitely put some on Toy Story. Can I mention one thing?
Go ahead.
That I wanted to definitely point out. I think, we talked about how quotable this movie is briefly. All that dialogue, all that, back and forth and stuff. I mean, the story production goes storyboarding and then script writing and animation usually, especially with Disney and Pixar and that sort of thing. But the man that they pulled in to do that dialogue is none other than Joss Whedon. Yes, that Joss Whedon. And I don't think a lot of people realize that he wrote Toy Story. He did all the dialogue. He didn't create the story, but he did write all that amazing dialogue between the characters. And I think that's one of the reasons that the characters leap off the screen the way they do and have such a vibrance to them is the actors, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, who is, I always forget his name, Slinky Dog, who passed away a couple years ago.
Jim Varney.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim Varney. You got, the guy from Cheers, who I can never remember his name.
John Ratzenberg.
You've got, the Mr. Potato Head guy.
John
You've got all these different great actors, and then you've got Joss Whedon's lines on top of it. Very quippy, very quick. And there you go. I mean, you've got a recipe for some fantastically memorable characters.
Yeah. I think, what was I going to say? Now, one of the things that has been highly debated about this film is Andy's mom. And where's the dad in the midst of all of this? That has caused I remember even as a kid, where's the dad? Now, a lot of people have kind of said that maybe they're illegitimate children, which I don't think so at all. Could she be divorced and left to...
She could also be a widow. She could also be an army mom.
But where's the dad? That's the big question. I mean, for all...
Overseas in Iraq, duh.
Then why don't we see him in the subsequent films? I don't know. I mean, that's...
Because he's been in Iraq the whole time.
Where were we at? The Gulf Coast War? I think that was going on in 1995, I think.
That had mostly finished, I think. I'm not positive in that regard.
But anyway, yeah. Where is your theories on Andy's family, so to speak? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. My general headcanon has always been that she's a widow, but I have nothing to back that up.
There's nothing to back this up. It just, or maybe it could
It's
be,
a Disney movie. They kill parents, you know.
but they've never explored it. Maybe here's I've got the answer for you right now. The dad was killed in a car accident or in a robbery, and she doesn't want to mention him.
It was Mr. Incredible's fault.
Yes. Well, wait a minute. Didn't a character die?
And he got hit by Lightning McQueen.
Yeah. Maybe that's true. There you go. That's true.
You know how people are with their fan theories.
Yeah. Didn't someone like point out that they think they may have found the real parents of Andy's real dad or something like that in one of these movies? I
have no clue. There was something like that, I think, but I'm not sure.
I guess we'll talk about some of the supporting characters. I mean, you have Rex, Mr. Potato Head, Buzz, Rex, Slinky Dog, Bo Peep. Great ensemble, played by wonderful actors that you just mentioned. But I do want to ask you this question: do you feel like these characters? You have a dinosaur, a potato head, a pig.
Wallace Shawn. Yes, Wallace Shawn is amazing. Go ahead. I knew I had forgotten someone in the voice actors. That's why I was Wallace Shawn.
Yeah,
amazing.
A Slinky Dog. Do you feel like these characters? We talked about how Woody and Buzz are the representation of the past and the future. What do you think these characters represent, given their, the nature of who they are? Do you feel like
I think there's less of a connection and representation in that regard. I just think that, if you're going to do a story where factions are being chosen, which is definitely what happens here, some of them are with Woody and stuff until the ultimate turning point where Woody betrays Buzz and everything with the whole Pizza Planet thing accidentally, and everyone thinks it's on purpose and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that they necessarily represent anything specific, but there might be a few little hints here and there. I just can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Listen, Light Snack, you stay away from Andy. He's mine, and no one is taking him away from me.
What are you talking about?
Where's that bonding strip? And another thing, stop with this spaceman thing. It's getting on my nerves.
Are you saying you want to lodge a complaint with Star Command?
Oh, okay. Ooh, well, so you want to do it the hard way, huh?
Don't even think about it, cowboy.
Oh, yeah? Tough guy?
Air isn't toxic. How dare you open a spaceman's helmet on an uncharted planet? My eyeballs could have been sucked from their sockets.
You actually think you're the Buzz Lightyear? Oh, all this time I thought it was an act. Hey, guys, look! It's the real Buzz Lightyear!
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Oh, no. Buzz, look, an alien!
Where?
Ah!
What do you think is the bigger picture of Buzz's of Woody's worry? What do you think his biggest concern in that situation is? Do you really think he is afraid of being replaced, or because he's the new guy and he's afraid of being replaced permanently? Or do you think he's wise enough to know that this is just a phase, and that eventually, that Andy is going to get over this thing? That's an interesting question.
I think that he wants to believe in the beginning that Andy is strong enough, but I think that he slowly begins to think that Buzz is bamboozling his way into a place, and he really doesn't care if Buzz really actually thinks he's Buzz or not. He just wants his Andy, and it slowly just becomes irrational jealousy. And I think that that's really the motivation that we see, is he just becomes irrational.
And I like how, even as a kid, here's the weird thing. I actually, and even other people, kind of thought that Woody was kind of the villain a little bit at this moment when he pushes Buzz out the window. And I think there was actually some earlier drafts in the script where he actually did it deliberately. But
yeah, there were.
Yeah.
Actually, just briefly, Whedon actually has talked in interviews about that specifically. He said that was the biggest story problem that Lasseter and the other Stanton and the others were having with the storyboardings is in the story is they had a really hard time making Woody likable and not just completely detestable. And Whedon is said to have, and Lasseter has said too, that Whedon really helped out in giving Woody a much more three-dimensional, pardon the pun, motivation that people could identify with, because otherwise we really don't have a protagonist in the film.
No,
You know?
I mean, the closest thing would be Buzz, but, you know that he's gonna have to shake the whole delusionment off.
Right.
But
And he's not active enough in the story to be a protagonist. He's much more of a character who's having things happen to him instead of going out and doing things. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And but even as a kid, I always still kind of I actually always thought to myself, man, Woody did something wrong, that he actually did that deliberate, even with, it was all an accident, but there was still a weird sense in my mind that Woody did something wrong here when Buzz goes out the window, even though he didn't do it directly or intentionally with that mindset, but it definitely puts Woody in a very negative spotlight. Even for a kid, even for like a 5-year-old at that point in time, which is weird.
Well, but as a 5-year-old, I likened it to, even before I really knew how allegories worked and stuff. It always reminded me of the whole thing I'd seen in other TV shows, although I never experienced myself. Although people think I did, I don't remember it. Of being the older child who is jealous of the younger child because of the parents' attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really good, we're talking about social classes and things. That's one of the most basic social class breakdowns that you can deal with, is as far as jealousy goes, is the little kid or the big kid being jealous of the little kid. And I think that this was very much a case where, everyone, I don't think that there's anyone on this planet who hasn't dealt with irrational jealousy or envy or covetousness at some point in their life. That's always been a thing in the human race, and some people learn and get better from it. And I'd argue that Woody learned from it too. And so, as long as you make it something that other people have done themselves that's bad, but they can acknowledge that it's bad, then you're creating a good character. It can't be something that people would go, "Oh, I would never do that."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. There's something else. What are some other things about this movie let me think of something real quickly.
We're gonna wrap in just a little bit, right?
Yeah, just maybe like another 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of something else. Okay, when I look at the relationship between Woody and Buzz, I think the movies that come to my mind, it's kind of like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid at times, or even like a buddy cop type. Well, not necessarily like a buddy. Well, yeah, like a buddy cop.
Yeah, buddy cop. That's really close to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I like the circumstances that they're in. Like they find themselves in the pizza truck, Pizza Planet. Ultimately, it's his house. I love the scope of where they take these characters and the situations that they're in. Like when they go to the Sid's Forbidden Room and they meet all these like zombie or dead toys that are brought back to life in horrific ways.
The Claw.
Yes, the Claw. The movies actually I'm actually thinking of like the Odyssey with this story. There is, you have this, they have the the lead character in that story go through, loses his home, he loses everything, and then he goes on this pilgrimage of all these different circumstances. I think what was the name of this character in Homer's?
Was it Odysseus?
Odysseus. Yes, Odysseus. And then he finds himself in all these circumstances. He's tempted to find love somewhere. He goes into the sea, and then this shipwrecked by this huge sea monster. He doesn't. I mean, Woody and Buzz don't come back to find out that their slaves have taken over the house or anything like that. It's nothing like that at all. But there is kind of an odyssey that these characters go on, and I like that. I love that approach. I've always liked, especially for like the small scale with these toys. They're small, but yet they're taking this big pilgrimage. They're taking this journey to this big scope, and I mean, it doesn't get any better with the chase that you have at the end with the moving truck. I think that's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. That is a wonderful stand up and cheer scene. Talking about the small scale, but a big journey kind of thing. Reminds me actually of a Disney movie live action that came out a few years before, and that's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, okay.
You got a similar cinematographical idea behind it, being small but having big, large things around you, and I think that was very in vogue during kind of the Spielbergian era, ever since E.T.
Yes.
E.T. kind of pioneered doing, in some ways, not in perfectly first or originally pioneered, but having a camera down on a child's level. Well, some filmmakers said, well, what if we did it on essentially a Bugs level in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or on a Toys level in Toy Story? So.
And I mean, I remember as a kid, and look, everybody, I recommend, some fan out there made like a live action version with the toys. He did the whole thing with the truck practically. I mean, he did not use any green screen. He did it for real. And that sequence with them just like running after the truck is great. And the scale of it is, I think honestly the best chase sequence is actually in Toy Story 2, but we'll talk about that another time. But that whole sequence, they're chasing down this big truck and they're trying to get back onto it. I don't know, that must have been the most difficult scene to actually shoot or to animate, because it's a big action set piece. I mean, you got all these interesting circumstances going on, and it's just beautifully done. That's the scene I go to every or I think about for the most part when I think of this movie. Yeah.
I mean, just the lines, "This is the part where we blow up. Not today."
Yes.
Is just fantastic.
Yes.
It's funny, it's exciting, it's triumphant, and the score during that portion, man. The musical score. We barely even touched on the music.
Randy Newman,
I mean, You've Got a Friend in Me, Strange Things, I Will Go Sailing No More, and it's like they didn't want it to be a musical, which it isn't, but like, I that's the one thing that I kind of miss in the other Toy Story movies, is not having the Randy Newman music,
I mean, this one actually was a lot more orchestral than the other ones.
Yes, that too.
And that was
a lot more orchestral.
I think that was very unusual for Disney movies at this point in time. I think you had it with some of the classic Disney movies, but I think this one.
Well, at the time, Lion King preceded it, and then Pocahontas, and then I think we had 95. I'm trying to think. I know that Hunchback came out in 96, so you're right around that period, and they were very orchestral at the time.
Yeah.
But Toy Story kind of takes it to another level, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, and Lion King and Pocahontas, they were trying to work in special themes of Native American and Savannah African and French
and European,
European. Hunchback, So
yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah. Great music. Go get the soundtrack if possible. But yeah, that was another thing that stood out to me too.
Buzz, I can't do this without you. I need your help.
I can't help. I can't help anyone.
Well, sure you can, Buzz. You can get me out of here, and then I'll get that rocket off you, and we'll make a break for Andy's house.
Andy's house, Sid's house. What's the difference?
Oh, Buzz, you've had a big fall. You must not be thinking clearly.
No, Woody. For the first time, I am thinking clearly. You were right all along. I'm not a space ranger. I'm just a toy, a stupid, little, insignificant toy.
Whoa, hey, wait a minute. Being a toy is a lot better than being a space ranger.
Yeah, right.
No, it is. Look, over in that house is a kid who thinks you are the greatest, and it's not because you're a space ranger, pal. It's because you're a toy. You are his toy.
But why would Andy want me?
Why would Andy want you? Look at you. You're a Buzz Lightyear. Any other toy would give up his moving parts just to be you. You've got wings. You glow in the dark. You talk. Your helmet does that whoosh thing. You are a cool toy. As a matter of fact, you're too cool. I mean, what chance does a toy like me have against a Buzz Lightyear action figure? All I can do is...
There's a snake in my boots.
Why would Andy ever want to play with me when he's got you? I'm the one that should be strapped to that rocket.
So Joshua, do you recommend Toy Story, and what are your final thoughts on this Pixar film? The very first one.
Recommend. If you haven't seen it, you're an idiot. Go and see Toy Story. Toy Story, while I wouldn't necessarily immediately think of it as one of my favorite movies of all time, just because I've seen such things that have blown me away beyond it, I think that for a kid's story, it might be the greatest kid's story in a movie that I've seen and enjoyed. And I say kids story because this really is a story for kids. The adults can enjoy it and get stuff out of it, but honestly, this story is made for kids, as opposed to like a Beauty and the Beast, which is really the story is made for adults. The movie is made for kids. Which I distinguish between the two. But the story in this movie was made for kids, and the movie itself was made for families.
Yeah.
And I really do think that it is one of the greatest kids stories that I've ever known. And definitely, check it out as soon as possible. If you haven't, what have you been doing for the past 21 years?
I know.
You random person. I bet your name's Hubert. Who names their kids Hubert?
Yeah.
Some kid who apparently doesn't watch Toy Story, but go ahead.
But anyway, I one of my, great movie, and I think I highly recommend it, but one thing I wanted to talk about, it's, like, every time, I have yet to meet one person that does not like Toy Story. Like, I have yet to meet, even like people who are adults who saw this movie way back in the day, they say, "Oh, I love that movie. I love that movie. I take my kids to go see it, but I love that movie." You know, like even
which is one of the reasons I blame it for the nostalgia craze. But yeah,
but I think there's again the accessibility towards it is like even adults love this movie so much. Even the kids like. When I talk to people like about Toy Story and the fact that there's more of them, they're like people are like, they get really kind of defensive and say, no, you shouldn't do a fourth one. Leave that alone. You have a perfect trilogy right here. But just the fact that first one is just so great. That first film just works so well. This first film works on so many levels. And I want to read something right here.
It really does.
I want to read the Rotten which is one of those rare movies that has a perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It says here, entertaining as it is innovative. Toy Story reinvigorated animation while heralding the arrival of Pixar as a family-friendly force to be reckoned with. I mean, this is where it all began, people, and it's here to stay. And, we were talking about the animation very early on. I look at, like, A Bug's Life, which focused on, bugs and all that stuff, and the animation looks great there. When we get to Toy Story 2, which was, like, I think the third film, the animation just took a turn for the better. You look at just that huge progress that they made between the two films, and it's pretty astonishing of what they were able to improve. But yeah, I recommend Toy Story. I say go check it out, buy it, love it, buy some toys, and just cherish it. It is one of the greatest animated films, if not one of the great films, period. It's up there in my book.
You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your
So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for our 93rd episode of Story to Screen. We thank you very much for listening in and tuning in. We don't know what's going to be next on our list. We do have something planned for Friday, but I will not reveal what that is specifically. Hopefully, we can continue on with our shows in general, in good process and in good confidence, because we want to reach our 100th episode very, very soon. But yeah, so keep an eye out for more episodes. And Joshua, thank you very much again for hanging in there with me and getting our schedules correct and perfect for this to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Not a problem. Not a problem at all.
So thank you very much. And that's how difficult it is, people. But anyway, we won't get into that again. But anyway, folks, yeah, so take care, everybody, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.
Ow! You're gonna see it's our destiny. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me.